Hi, boys and girls. It's Mr. Harper here. Today, we're going to work on the skill of developing characters for your science fiction story. And so, most of the things that we have already taught you about writing a narrative would still apply to a science fiction story, like creating a plot with a problem and a solution. All of those skills are still going to apply to this story. However, when developing a character for science fiction, we have to consider a few other elements. And so, what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you a strategy today that you could use in trying to develop a character that's appropriate for your science fiction story. So, the first thing we need to consider when developing a character for your science fiction story is you got to consider the writing process and where you are in the writing process. So as you know, and I'm just going to quickly review the writing process with you, as you know, that it requires us to pre-write, and then we start drafting, and then we try to make it better by revising, and then we look for those mistakes, those capitalization, punctuation, spelling errors with editing. But we also should know that at any point, we can go back to different spots in the process and start over before we get to the final task, which is publishing our writing. So this strategy that I'm teaching you today is really a pre-writing strategy. Okay? And so when developing a science fiction character, you want to think about really two things. You want to think about what is it like today, and what might it be like in the future? What is it like today, and what might it be like in the future? So with any science fiction character, there's going to be similarities to today and differences that may occur in the future. And so the skill I'm going to teach you is a cluster. And you may be familiar with the cluster because we have those graphic organizers we use that look like webs. And so the cluster is really like a web. And so in the center, you're going to write down the idea of your character. So being a science fiction character, I'm thinking that maybe it's going to be hundreds of years from now on an unknown planet. And it's going to be a life of aliens. So my character is going to be an alien. And I want to come up with a name. Again, I can always change this because this is just a pre-writing strategy, so I may go back and I might change it later. But let's call my alien Vu Mu. Vu Mu. All right, so now I got the idea of what I'm going to, the character, what it's going to be, and I gave the character a name. And I'm going to make my character the protagonist, which means that he's the good guy. He's the hero of the story. He's the main character. And with every protagonist, there's often an antagonist. And that's the person that's causing the conflict or the trouble, or often the villain or the bad guy. But in this case, I'm really focusing on the protagonist, the good guy in my story. And so, being an alien, I got to think of some points for my character. So what does he look like? So I'm going to write look like right there. And then right from there, I'm going to start describing. I'm going to add to my cluster. So he's lime green, tall, very tall, strong sense of smell, also, he's going to have long arms. Okay. And I can add stuff to that, right? Long arms. And I might add that his arms go all the way to his feet. To his feet. Okay. So you can see that, right? Humans have a strong sense of smell. Humans can be tall. Humans can have long arms. But what makes this character in the future different? Maybe his arms are very long that go all the way to his feet. He has a strong sense of smell. And I can maybe use this when developing my story and add this characteristic to the plot, right? That maybe there's something where he needs to use his strong sense of smell in order to solve the problem in the plot of the story. Other things you might want to consider when brainstorming, because this is really a brainstorming activity. Brainstorming your character is you want to consider what character traits the character has. So even though this character is abstract and fictional, right, we still want to give it some character traits because that's what makes us connect with a character, right? We can relate to a character who's maybe shy or outgoing or kind or mean. This character we're going to make the hero of the story. I'm going to make him very kind. And that may be different than what you think of aliens from movies, right? Because sometimes aliens are bad. But in this case, this alien's very kind. And maybe I'm going to center that idea, make that a center point in my story as I develop it. Maybe some other character traits. Maybe he's kind and very gentle. Maybe he's too kind. Can you be too kind? That's something that I need to ask. But maybe he's way too kind. Maybe he's way too trusting to these humans from Earth that are going to come to his planet. Maybe because he's so kind in nature, he just assumes that everyone's the same way that he is, right? So I'm starting to really think about my character, and this is a way to map out my ideas. And we call this strategy a cluster, a character cluster. So I hope this helps you when you're developing your characters for your science fiction story. But what you want to remember is that you kind of want to build from the center, and that way you can create kind of a map of your character. So when you're writing your story, you can refer back to it and say, oh, wait a minute, maybe I can add these parts to the plot. But that way you already have a really strong connection to your character, which helps when you're developing your story. So again, I'm Mr. Harper here, and this was characterization for a science fiction story, and I hope this helps you. Good luck.